Welcome to the SoulScape Show, where together we will explore and discover the depth and breadth of your soul. I'm your host, Gabrielle Spencer. Today we have with us the amazing and world-renowned Maureen St. Germain and Lori Spagna. Maureen St. Germain is known as the Practical Mystic, and she's a global teacher, having shared her wisdom teachings and sacred practices in over 24 countries. She is the author of many books like Awakening in 5D, Meet Your Record Keepers and Discover Your Soul's Purpose. She has developed foolproof techniques so you can access your higher self and gain the insight for your highest frequency evolution. Lori Spagna is a best-selling author, spiritual teacher, energy healer, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, animal communicator, visionary, and all-around amazing being of light. Today, we will be doing another episode of the panelist discussion series. So join me in welcoming Maureen and Lori. Hello and welcome everybody to the SoulScape Show. This is Gabrielle Spencer. Thank you for being here. I am so excited because I have two awesome, lovely ladies of light. Here's our new coined phrase, right? Ladies of light. They are Lori Spagna and Maureen St. Germain. And I am so pleased to have them here with me because they're just rockin' women. I just love them. Their energy is fantastic. What they're doing in the world is more than amazing. And each of them bring their own key to the next level. And this is the great thing about what we do here on the SoulScape Show, which is that there are many levels, right? If we all just needed one key, that would be so much easier. But it's not the case, right? There's a whole lot of things going on, and that's what we're here to talk about. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about Lori. She is a best-selling author, a spiritual teacher, an energy healer, an ascension guide, a multidimensional channel, an animal communicator, a visionary, and all-around amazing person. And I can speak to that personally. I have experienced her as both the animal communicator and as a healer and as a friend, and I appreciate her with all my heart. And Maureen St. Germain, practical mystic and author of several books. So many I don't even have them listed all, just so you know. So Google her or go out to her website if you want to know more. But some really amazing ones. Waking Up in 5D. I think that's awesome. That's a great goal. And she is the author of Opening the Akashic Records, Meet Your Record Keepers and Discover Your Soul's Purpose. And she's here to share her perspectives on ancient truths, sacred geometries, and the heart and the role that it plays in the 5D. And that's what we're all here to talk about, right? That fabulous heart space. So, ladies, please say hello.
Hi.
Hi. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm looking forward to our connection and conversation.
Me too. Me too, because I think that what's really going on is pretty crazy. I saw an email today where someone was talking about the dark side of the moon. And I'm not a big into the cycles and such, but basically that there's another portal opening. And I don't know about you ladies, but is it like every day portal is opening? So I know it feels like it though, doesn't it, Lori?
Well, I mean, there's always portals opening. You can kind of know them in numerology. You can also know them in astrology. We typically link up, but we have a huge one, 12, 12, 12. Huge this year.
So why is it huge?
This year, why? Because if you look at this current year, it's a 3-year, 2019. Add those numbers together and you'll get 3. And you'll get 12, which is 3. And 12, month of 12, and the day of 12. That makes it a triple portal. It's huge. 11/11 is another big one. 10/10 we just had.
So on each of these portals, when we say they're huge, is it because there's more opportunity for each person to get what it is they need? Is it just that there's a huge opening for us to be able to get more what happens? And this is my question, but it isn't. I mean, how are we bringing it? So Lori, you and I were just talking. And so we're talking about up leveling, right? And that all of us are doing it all the time. So I'm going to assume that these portals are about up leveling. But for each person, how do they know what it is that they are getting out of it? Do they need to know? What do they need to do exactly or not exactly? And Maureen, jump in anytime. This is all as if the three of us are having a three-way telephone conversation. So jump in and just share what it is, because I know that I'm seeing a lot this information coming forward from people. What is it that we should tap into to get the most out of the opportunity, and how can we best utilize it?
I think it's important that people begin to realize that the world is changing all around you. You know, I was walking on the street here in Manhattan today, and I overheard a guy next to me who was walking I was kind of walking around him, and he said, you know, I really want to support what you believe in and what you want to do. And even if it's not what I want to hear what you want, and I want to support that. And I thought, yes, we're all stepping up. We're all moving into that place where we're willing to support one another, and we're willing to change the reality. And what I think is happening is that we're seeing the media do one thing, and we're seeing everyone else do something different. And so from my perspective, this, you know, I'm a numerologist myself, and I know the vibration of certain things press into that space or that time, whether it's your address or your phone number, or whether it's the year itself. I look at the year of 2019 as a year of transformation, and I'll call it blow-ups, because threes never stay together. They separate into two into one. And so I see that as like the explosions from within or the explosions from without. And what does that mean? It means the explosion of, I can't take this anymore. I can't put up with this anymore. And they decide to change. They decide to change themselves, their relationships, their job, whatever. And in that process, they make room for something new, something better.
Lori, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I love Maureen and I are dear friends. I love
We're on the same page.
I know we're all on the same page.
Agree with her. I will say what's helpful just to understand about the portals is that, just going back to what you had brought up earlier, is just that portals are just, all they are is notations in time and space when humanity can receive extra support for their own ascension journey. So they're just marker points in time and space. So in other words, on 10/10 or 11/11 or 12/12 of this year, you can really, of any year, you can know whenever there's a triple or a double or a triple, those are days when there's an astrological, planetary, galactic, energetic alignment of energy, frequency, and vibration that will assist any individual human, plant, mineral, animal to come into alignment with the divine.
It's kind
of
like,
when I say that, what I mean is love, peace, happiness, joy, expansion of consciousness, liberation, freedom, you name it, health, well-being.
You get a combination lock, and a portal suddenly creates a way for them to both line up and be at the same place in the same way, that allows that opening that Lori's describing to happen. So that's why they're so powerful, because it's a nexus point that allows something to come through that has not been able to come through before that.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question, and this is a personal question because I've been really doing a lot of integrating, and we're all transforming. And this is the process. I see that Dawn wrote in, I'm trying to maintain peace through all these endings and beginnings in my life. And so we're having a lot of movement personally in the physical realm, everybody, where things that might have been going along just fine suddenly are exploding. But the deeper gift in that is that there's something deeper for us to heal, release, move out, and move on. There's a lot of move on right now in that the old stuff, it's truly now being purged if we are willing to just let it go, right? And then retrain ourselves to be in that higher place of peace. For 2020, do you see more of the same? What are your feelings on the energetic trends as we're heading closer after these next two major portals and other things that are happening? Everybody's got to realize there's no real downtime anymore. So,
well, one of the downtime is what you take and what you give yourself, and everybody needs to do that quite a bit. And as we move into the retrograde that we're coming into, you know, over this cycle of time when this particular training is being offered, you know, you're going to see a lot of difficulty if we try to put too much into our life, and we have to create that downtime to make everything else fall into place. I'm not convinced that the trauma and drama is over. What I think is happening is that it's going to accelerate, and people are going to learn how to do things quicker, faster, easier. And that's where people like us fit in. We're going to help them do that.
The other thing that's worth saying too is in terms of 2020, I mean, since we're on the topic of numerology and portals, 2020 is a 22 and a 4. And so that really is a year of mastery. It's going to help people who have already been on this journey for a while, it's those of us here, to really level up into our mastery in a whole new way so that we can be really of better service. So we're not going through as much of our own stuff, actually. I think for those of us really far along the journey, we're going to find it to be a new, like a resurrection. 4 is a number of resurrection, rebirth, renewal. It also is a number of working smart, not working hard. It's a foundational number. Think 4 corners of a square, of a pyramid. So it's a foundational number. So if you're already in your mastery or been on the mastery level journey that, you know, if we're here, we have been, it's going to be a new leveling up. And that will allow us to sort of rest in a sense in our own mastery, so to speak, so that we can be of service to those who have not really yet awakened. To me, what I perceive it to be is a level of consciousness that humanity will start to realize that everything's energy, everything is a frequency match, and everything is vibration. That's when people really start realizing that as a collective, it's going to be what frequency do I want to be? And people will start really realizing a lot more, like, I don't really want to be the frequency of disease and poverty and lack and anger, resentment, all those things. They start making more conscious choices and they're going to start leveling up. So I see it as a whole new, like a year of resurrection for humanity. But one other thing about this is just, if you look at the corners of a square, if you hit a corner, you're at a dead end. That's a square. That's like, nope, no, you can't go that way. That's not going to work for you. You're at a dead end. Like, you're just going to, people are going to hit their points of their limitations where they're just like what Maureen was saying. I agree. Where they're like, this isn't working. I got to find something new, find a better way.
Well, and one of the things you said that I was really feeling as you were describing this is this energy of people who have reached a certain level of mastery of their own, even if they're not where they want to be, they're going to be turning around and looking at the people behind them and saying, how can I help you? And that pushes them to the next level of mastery effortlessly. And so it is in the teaching others everything is going to blossom and take off. And there's so many people who don't have a clue that are out there in the world. You know, I'm finding that there's a lot of people that just are still so engaged in the reality that I'm now going to call the matrix, that they're going to suddenly want to know more, want to be more, and not know where to start. They're just going to be lost. They're going to start having dreams. You know, I have a client that she had a dream about a woman and her daughter, and the next morning on the subway, that same couple, the mother and daughter, were across from her on their train ride into town. And she said, what does this mean? Stuff like that's going to start to happen all the time for people. And they're going to wonder what's going on. And that's when the collaboration and the cooperation and the we're all one energy is going to really start to move in. And, you know, I travel all over the world, and I find that the compassion and the camaraderie that I see is much bigger than I even expect. And it could be that it's me, that I'm only attracting that, or it could be that humanity really is leveling up, like Lori's describing, you know, that we're just taking the leap. And I also think that there's a quality that occurs that people will wake up and not know that they're awake. So let's say they call me, you know, a friend or family calls me about something with numerology or astrology or the Akashic records. And they'll say, well, you know, what does this mean? You know, I had this experience. And they're going to get off the phone and you're going to think, you know, wait a minute. At the last Thanksgiving, they made fun of me. And here they are now asking me like it's a normal question, like it's a recipe.
This happens all the time. So all the people out there where your family might think you're crazy, just know you'll be the one they turn to when things around them go crazy. And they go, you know what? I'm going to ask her because I'll bet she knows, or she'll know where to direct me. So this is so, so true.
But I'm also saying that they won't remember that yesterday or last Thanksgiving they were making fun of you. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
They're literally shift up so much that they're not going to remember they were not who they are now. And you know, the other thing that's so big to me right now is this concern about people's welfare. I was struggling to find out where my suitcase had landed, you know, a couple of days ago when I came back from someplace. And I was at the lost and found, you know, of my airline. And I was there with my one baggage, but the other piece was not where it was supposed to be. And they said, go over here to this thing and get it and come back here. So I walked away and I had left my purse on top of the other luggage. And every single person was worried about it. And as I turned around and came right back, they were all screaming at me, you left your purse, you left your purse. That would never happen 10 years ago or 5 years ago even.
You know, I want to go to the compassion piece. Lori and I just had a long session about this, and I want to publicly acknowledge Lori's work because she's just a lovely being. And I came to her with that request, actually, to help me with this next layer of compassion for what have you. Like, you know, when we're doing healing and we're involved in it for others, we provide what we've already been through usually. So we're going through it, and as we go through it, then we're able to provide it down. As you said, you turn around and there are people behind you who need help with the same thing. So for me, this deeper, older piece, it's been a very transformational year for me. So this had to do with compassion. And on the surface, we can call it compassion, but it's so much more. And there's so many layers to things. But I feel that what came out in our session is that this is that heart piece that we're all talking about is necessary in order to get higher vibrationally. So for the people that are on this show right now, and for the people who listen later, besides the self-care part, what can people do to help themselves tap into that energy of compassion, which I sort of equate to the Kuan Yin energy, and bring that in so that they're really opening their hearts? How can they tap in more? What comes to you with regard to this next piece for us so that we can continue this next step into, you know, our next level? Because we're going to be doing things over and over in a way. Like some people might think, well, I already worked on that. Whatever it is, doesn't have to be just compassion, but it comes up again in a deeper way.
I have a really short answer. What I was taught by my angels was to ask the question, dear God, show me how much I'm loved. And when I started doing that, all the barriers went down.
Okay, say it again, Maureen.
Dear God, show me how much I am loved.
I love it. It's beautiful. I'm going to teach that to my children.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I would also say some other things too about the compassion piece, which is that I was just thinking about this after we hung up the phone. I was thinking about how I remember when I really started opening up to compassion was the 2 years that I lived in Maui. I just went through my dark night of the soul. You know, I lost everything, completely transformed my life, but it was so challenging for me. I became such a compassionate person. And it's not that we have to go through some form of dark night of the soul to open up our heart, but I would suggest that we start considering other people more. We have to all, as a planet, start considering, and I think this is happening. I really do. I can see it happening. You know, us considering how we are participating, how we are affecting others, what, how our actions, our words, our thoughts, our behavior affects others, how our contribution to Earth affects others. Even, and also, of course, the service piece is huge. Like, how can we serve? How can we contribute to a betterment of our world? The other piece with compassion that's really, really significant, which we don't always consider and talk about, but which is so greatly needed on Earth at this time, is the integrity piece. Because we don't typically link those things together, but compassion is linked to integrity, but to the will, to the desire to be really aligned with integrity. That has been missing from humanity. That has been missing from our financial institutions, from our governmental institutions, from even our schooling institutions, from even our spiritual institutions, even our metaphysical, even in the spiritual community, that's been missing. You know, to bring integrity and to decide to be the highest and best versions of ourselves. That requires us to be truly compassionate to ourselves and to one another, and to decide that we're going to act in the highest interest of all. That is integrity. To act with in the highest interest of all, to honor our word, to honor our agreement, to honor our commitments, to honor ourselves and one another.
Yeah, I like to add that we get our minds and our hearts, our words, our thoughts, and our actions in alignment. They're all the same. So what you say, what you think, and what you do are in alignment. And a lot of times we don't realize that we're not in alignment or in integrity because we've been so busy lying to ourselves, we don't even notice when we're lying to somebody else. And it might be something as simple as lying about, oh yeah, I'll go to that movie with you because you want to go with that person. Instead of saying, I'd like to go to the movies with you, but that's not my favorite kind of movie. Is there something else we could watch? You know, and it's a simple thing, but what happens is when we learn to honor our own, as Laurie's saying, we then find it easy to honor everyone else as well.
I think that part of the lying thing is a really important conversation, because I don't know that everybody perceives it as lying, but I can see, like, as soon as you say lying, immediately what comes to me is judgment. Like, because we have so many perceptions that asking for help, even with your filters, so that you're not judging it or lying about it, that you're free to be truthful to yourself, right? Because we get caught up in everybody's expectations, including our own, and you know what it is we're hoping to get out of a friendship or a relationship or whatever, our jobs or even our missions, like what it is that we're hoping. I feel like that seems to be a huge one for people. Like, they're always in the place of wanting, like, I want it to be better, I want it to be more fulfilling, but yet that actually almost sets up the fail. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree. And I think one of the number one things people do is they use the should word or the have to word. And they're using it on themselves, but then they're also projecting it on everyone else. And when we stop saying should and we stop saying have to, we actually step into our own power. Because when we do shoulds, we do have tos, Should is somebody else, mom or somebody else, telling us what we ought to be doing. And I have to is me announcing to the world that somebody else has control over me. And I'm so concerned that people don't realize how quickly they give their power away. And if you're giving your power away, how can you know for sure that you're out of integrity? Because you don't know where your power is, and power is being pushed on you, or you have a sense of obligation, or God knows what else, kinds of dramas that are going on. Your expectations, their expectations, back and forth. But when you're in your power, you know what you want, you know what makes you happy, and you're okay saying it. And you don't have to be mean saying it, but you can say, look, that doesn't work for me. What else you got? What else can we do? I had a situation today where something was supposed to happen, and I said to my assistant, Kim, that everyone loves, including me.
Me too. I love her.
She's a darling.
I love her.
What I said to her was, I texted you and asked you to send me the email that you sent out, and you never even responded. And she said, well, I decided to wait till tomorrow because it was a good day tomorrow as well. And, then she proceeds to list all these things that are going on. And I said, look, I have no problem with you making that decision to decide to not do it today. What is uncomfortable for me is that I was looking for it. You'd agreed you would get it out. And you didn't text me saying, too much drama, I'm putting it off till tomorrow. I'll catch you up when I'm back at my desk. Something to let me know what's going on. And she agreed, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Not I should do that, but I can do that. Ownership. And, I choose to do this report because I agreed to get it done by the state, or I choose to pick up my kids at the daycare center. Right now, I'm leaving because I don't like them to be the last ones out of there. Whatever it is, instead of I have to go get my kids now, I have to meet my husband for this, I have to go do that. That have to pushes the power so far away, you don't know where you're at. And that's part of the language of 5D, knowing what words throw you out of integrity, because that throws you out of integrity because you don't have to. You don't have to do anything, at least not in America. I mean, maybe you have to die. Maybe you have taxes you may have to pay. But aside from a few things like that, there are no have-tos. You don't even have to honor the speed limit. If you don't want to follow the speed limit, you don't have to. But if you get caught, you'll get a ticket. That's all. It's very interesting.
Well, I would love to chat about that topic. I mean, it's a little switching back to what you were bringing up earlier about the topic of lying. And I was thinking about this today too, because it's a challenging situation, the lying thing in 5D, because we're trained in 3D and in the old paradigm to lie. We actually are trained to lie. Like, you lie not to hurt someone's feelings. You have to lie to get yourself out of a day of work. You have to lie to get yourself, all kinds of things.
Well, people say I'm okay all the time and they don't mean it.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Sometimes you're lying to yourself just to get through the day. If you work in hospitality, you have to lie when you don't feel good and be smiling. You have to suppress your emotions. All kinds of things just to function in 3D. And we are literally taught in our society, lie. Even if you're not going to hurt someone's feelings, just lie not to hurt their feelings, or all kinds of ways. It's a survival tactic. And then what happens, like in my reality, even as a psychic, as an intuitive, I've had people lie to me. And sometimes I wonder, do they know that they're lying? Do they know? Like, how conscious of them are they that they're lying right now? Like, I know when they're lying. And sometimes I have to lie that I know someone's lying. And that's uncomfortable to me because as a psychic, I know a lot of times when someone's not telling the truth.
Don't you ever say, I'm not buying that? I say that to people all the time.
I don't. You're Maureen, this is one of the things I love about you. In that way, I think you're tougher than me in that way. Like maybe it's my watery sign or I don't know what I don't even mean to blame it on it. It's just, I try to accommodate. So I just let them. And I've known it in business sometimes where someone's telling me stuff and I'm like, do they think I don't know that they're lying? It's very uncomfortable. And I would rather us find new ways to express our truth and to be authentic and kind. Some things just don't need to be said. Like, I have a video on my YouTube channel that says, part of the thyroid issues is about learning to express truth in an authentic way without having to suppress it or over express. Like when you have thyroid issues, that's what that's about. A part of what it's about. It's like, how do we learn how to express our truth in a real and authentic way without being out of integrity, without having to lie or be dishonest? And I mean, for me, I'm truth to the point that I can piss people off, but I know how to just be quiet and let someone else tell their lie if that's their choice. But for me, I'm so truthful. Sometimes it's not even appropriate in our society. I don't always, it's a challenging point.
I have a question. Based on what you're saying, it occurs to me sometimes that is the higher way of dealing with that, the 5D and higher way, to just call in light, to allow the truth to be known to each person as it resonates with them. That way, the person, let's say, that you're dealing with or talking to or sharing with or what have you, that they receive the higher guidance about it, because it's our perception. I mean, okay, we have our current self and we have many layers of who we are, right? And our higher self has a totally different truth, I'm sure, than perhaps I might as 3D Gabrielle. So is it invoking the light to shine the light on the truth so that everybody receives what it is they need in that moment, versus necessarily me calling it out or me expressing my interpretation? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but it's just important to define truth here, because there is no truth. The only truth is held by the law of truth. Like there are some truths. There are some truths that are true. But almost everything that exists in our reality, there's no truth. There's no one truth. There's perspectives.
Yes. That's right.
However,
it's how you frame things and how you look at them.
Exactly. However, if someone is saying to you something like, I didn't get your message, my phone broke, or my phone, and you know that they got your message. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's an untruth.
Yes,
okay, so
agreed.
That's a lie. Like if someone's saying, oh, you're invited to this, but really they secretly know that they're just basically telling you you're not invited. But there's sometimes there's lies. So what we're talking about here is that fine line of being in integrity with your truth, because there's infinite truths about things.
Yes.
And there's infinite perspectives, and no perspective is wrong. But it's more like you as an individual being in alignment with your own truth to the best of your ability to know what is my truth, how do I express my truth authentically and with integrity and in alignment with my own personal highest and best in a way that's good and kind and benevolent and truthful and honest. That's what's the wavering part, because you know, if I say this color is green and you say it's blue, I mean, that's your seeing, and I can't say, well, it's green and you're wrong. I mean, this is blue.
But I think that I was going more for the bigger picture here on truth. But in all ways, we lie to ourselves. I mean, there are things I know, and I totally agree with you that, you know, I hear people say, and it doesn't resonate for me.
Right.
See, wasn't that a nice way to say it?
Yeah, it's a great way to say it. Or it's not a match. Or
definitely not a match.
I'm not buying that. And I say that all the time. I'm not buying that. Sorry. It's, you know, if that's what you want to believe, it's okay. Another really funny thing to say is, you know, I champion your right to hold that belief as long as it pleases you.
I love that. I'm going to write that down and use that on my daughters.
Listen, they move off of where they were, because when you say, I champion your right to hold that belief as long as it pleases you, it gives them room to be different a few seconds from now. Because you're not saying, well, I champion your right to hold that belief forever. You're saying, look, if it makes you happy right now, go ahead and believe it. I don't care. It's, you know, and I think that you're right, Laurie, that I don't tolerate a lack of integrity very well, and that I call it out pretty quickly.
But what about, I mean, I really want to ask you this, Maureen, as a friend and a colleague. When you know someone in the professional realm is lying to you,
right? Like, give me
and your colleagues, and there's like, let's say it's a conference or an expo or something like that. I mean, you call them out on that, or do you let them just?
No. Well, for example, let's say an organizer says to me, we don't have room for you, or we don't want you, because those are the kinds of things you're paying attention to. If they accept you, it's not a big deal. But let's say, they I had this happen.
They pretend they're going to make room for you, and then they really had a little secret agenda all along to just appease you.
Well,
really happened.
I don't know, Lori. I have not had that kind of experience. When people have told me no, and I was told no the other day by an organizer when I said, well, there's no place for me to put my PowerPoint. Can I bring my own equipment? And I'll just haul it in and haul it out. And she said, no, because we allowed 10 minutes for the speakers to change out, and that will take too much time. And I said, okay, what if I stop early and do it that way? And she said, we just don't allow it. So that I cornered her to get her to say the truth. And she was just working her way into it. Not everyone would keep trying like I do. Okay. So your point about, how I operate is very true. But I think that anytime we offer an excuse or a reason, when we offer that to people, we're inviting criticism. And I tell people all the time, stop apologizing and stop giving people your excuses on why you're doing or not doing whatever you're doing, because it gives people the entree to criticize or to find fault or to think that something else is going on. When if you don't offer an explanation, then you're being true to yourself about this is what's important to me. The other thing is, for me personally, I'm always checking in. I don't do anything without checking in. So, for me, I don't run into those situations that I'm likely to be led down the path that I might get into a show, or I might be allowed to do something and then not be allowed. You know how when you get stopped for a ticket, like a traffic ticket when you're driving, and you people do this, they put all these excuses on why they shouldn't get a ticket. And I got pulled over for crossing 4 lanes in Manhattan one time, and the police officer and I had a conversation about my car, because I said, I'm new in town, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying to sell my car. And he said, what do you want for your car? And we went into this funny side conversation. We get all done with that, and he says, I'm going to have to give you a ticket. And I said, I understand. And then he says, you can fight it. Now he's educating me on how things work in New York. And I said, oh, I could never do that. And he said, why? And I said, because I deserved it. And he looked at me and says, I can't give you a ticket now.
I love it.
Did he not give you the ticket?
He did not give me the ticket.
Wow. I will say that according to the United States Constitution, all roads are for travelers. And if you're a traveler, you're not allowed to be given a ticket. But because the United States, the for-profit corporation of the United States government, which is registered in Puerto Rico as a for-profit corporation, has taken over our Constitution and has claimed you a driver, not a traveler. And so as a driver, you are allowed to be given a ticket. But in reality, according to our Constitution, you are a traveler, and travelers are not allowed to be given tickets. But we are reclaiming our consciousness on that as well. So that's a whole other conversation.
I was just seeing their horse and buggy when you were talking about that, because, back then, nobody was traveling at 80 to 100 miles an hour. But anyway, I'm just kidding. We are reclaiming ourselves.
Right. Well, can I just say one last thing on the conversation about truth? Because I work with universal laws, and I love the laws, and I will say that what I've learned about working with the laws is that I kind of gained maybe is not the right word, but I developed enough virtues in this lifetime that the laws would interact with me directly. And it is a requirement to develop and behave virtuously. According to each law, you have to be aligned with them energetically. Well, in any case, one of the laws is the law of truth. And the law of truth simply holds truth. That's it, to help us know truth, what is really true. And there aren't a lot of truths. There are very few ultimate truths. But whenever people have spoken things that they perceive to be true, which were not true, I would have the law of truth, especially in my earlier days, it would just come through and be like, that's not true. That's not true. And because I was a clear enough channel conduit, sometimes in the earlier days, it would just come through.
Right. You just
that's not true.
That's not true.
And I had to actually, in a way, I wouldn't use the word negotiate, but I'm going to use the word tell this law. Like, you can't just come through like that. I'm in a human reality here, you know, like you're not allowed to do that here in this reality. Just call people out. So instead, what started happening, because the negotiation was like, I want to be able to channel the law of truth and be aligned with the law of truth, but please help me work with you in a higher and better way for my reality that I exist in. It would instead come into me and it would stop at my mouth. And so it would be in my body. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. And so I would always know, because parts of my body would tighten up, or like, it's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. But I keep repressing. So it's very uncomfortable for me physically. And if anyone was ever around me, like if a speaker was talking or something, and the law of truth is coming through, like giving me information, like my body would be jiggling and stuff. It's not comfortable. Anyway.
Well, you know, somebody's asked a question. Barb asked, she'd love to tune into the knowing of truth versus lie. So you're talking about the universal law of truth. So how can us ordinary people tap?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here before you do, because I think it's really valid when you are plugged in to source. There's no getting around the knowing that when someone's not speaking the truth. And the same thing happens to me, Laurie. I feel it. I know it. I hear conversations, you know, that my husband is doing with people who are saying, you know, they didn't disconnect their fire detector, and I know perfectly well they did. You know, it gets out fun. That's what they did, you know. But what I want to say about all this is there are ways to tell when people are not telling the truth. They rub their nose too much. That, you know, that Pinocchio look. Okay, that's real. Okay, when people start doing that, when they look you in the eye too much as compared with being comfortable, when they have too much detail, when they are they tell the story the same way every time. They don't have a way to see the story in its segments and compartmentalize it. They only know one way because they've made up the lie, and that's the only way they know it. So there's lots of really wonderful ways to know when someone's speaking the truth or not. You know.
Well, I love everything you just said, but I would like to add something to that, and that is your most basic empathic tool, and every person knows. It's just what I just said. Your body will tense somewhere, some way. If you start tuning into your body, and even just your knowing, even if it's not your body tensing somehow, some way, even so slightly, your knowing will feel a constriction, a contraction. Some part of you will contract. And even if, as you're listening to this, to us speaking, you're resonating with it, you're feeling an expansion, okay? Because when you're being given some form of truth in opposition, like as a contrast, you expand. You're like, yeah, I get it. Like, oh, right. Some part of you expands. Some part of you gets lighter. Well, right. When you're being given a falsehood, an untruth, or a lie, you're going to
contract
some way. And if you start tuning into your own self on this, you'll notice. You'll start to know. Everybody has it within them to know a falsehood from a truth. The thing is we've been so desensitized from it. So, for example, if you're watching the TV a lot, especially if you watch news, especially if you watch commercials, you're completely being deprogrammed from knowing the truth on purpose. For example, any news program, they're running two tracks. They're running an A track and a B track in everything. One is a good guy track and one is a bad guy track. And they switch sides so you can't tell. They put two talking heads and then they go into debate and disagreement and argument, and it schisms you on every commercial, especially pharmaceutical drug commercials, especially. They run an A track, butterflies and roses. You feel nice and good. People playing football, children playing, families playing, Claritin Clear, everything's wonderful. And then they run a B track, may cause death, may cause suicide, call your doctor. And this B track creates schisms, and you cannot discern in your body what's going on. And it runs you in an unconscious way, makes you just not know the truth. This is what it does.
So three things.
Disharmony.
Three things here. One, the importance of protecting your physical and energetic self with light, so that the fragmented frequencies that are going on all around us, because it's not just from television, it's from 5G, 4G, 3G, all the stuff being transmitted to the satellites up and down and all around. I mean, we are covered all over. I mean, my little water meter outside has a little infrared on it, and it just sends out to, they don't even have to come anymore. We don't even have meter readers anymore, basically.
Okay,
I mean, it just transmits straight to the station, right?
Smart meters are for stupid people. I had a sign on my
But my point is that we have fragmenting frequencies going on.
Right. Impacting us for sure, and holding us back and preventing us from being in our power, in our energy.
See, that's exactly the point. Even you just said you came through an airport. I know that you travel, both of you, a lot. And even the systems where they put you in and you actually feel like a criminal, put your arms up. They do the whole circular thing.
Should never go through that.
Exactly, because it snips your telomeres. It actually creates issues within your own physical body, not to mention your energetic body. But most people don't know that, and they just heard through there, you know, and so we're being snipped and frazzled all over. So the importance of protecting and being able to bring back together your energetic field to make sure that you're whole, I guess, right? So there's that. Then there was something else. It had to do with
three things. So I think
your intuitive voice,
your the outside energy you need to be aware of and to antidote that somehow. And then your inner connection you have to continue to build, like that's kind of what Lori was emphasizing. And then there was a third thing that you maybe haven't mentioned yet.
Well, I want to say, can I say something?
I'm going to bring it into the intuitive self. I mean, for each one of us, what we're really talking about, even with the law of truth and lying to yourself, because essentially it's not just detecting what other people are lying about. I mean, we're in a great place of transformation. There's a lot of information coming in. There are a lot of things going on inside, outside, and all around, right? We're being bombarded with information all of the time. And this is where that, in order for you to transform for your highest and best good, doesn't mean that you're running around doing 100 different programs or listening to 100 different things. It's more about being in that inner connection so that you're on your highest and best path and keeping yourself as clear as possible. Knowing when you're tapped in or not tapped in. It's almost like, I feel like the empowerment piece, that personal empowerment, is really important to get through this next segment of things versus just hoping.
Well, you know, here's a tool that everybody can use, and it's very powerful when you are in a situation where you are already exposed. You know, you were watching something and a bunch of crap came on, violence, whatever, stuff you know that is really like harmful to you, to cover your chakras and to put your hand above your head and literally move your hands and down in front of you, all the way down your chakras. And it's just like when you close your eyes, you close down your chakras and it won't come in your field. You know, there was a time when if I saw something that was out of alignment, you know, whether it was a war scene or something, you know, I'll call it obscene, that was very uncomfortable for me to see or watch, it would circle in my field for a week or more before it would go away. And the minute I started covering my chakras, boom, it doesn't come in, it doesn't penetrate. So that's an easy tool that anybody can do anytime. You can do it first thing in the morning. You can tie the cords around your body. That's pretty hard for me to demonstrate here, but the idea is the tools that we know that we can use to form a layer of not being able to be penetrated or drilled into by these other energies is very important. That's part of our self-care. And then, of course, our own intuitive work, the meditation and that kind of thing. And then finally, you know, choose what you're part of.
Choose what you're a part of.
Walk away from the water cooler. Walk away from people who are full of, you know, vinegar and have nothing nice to say, you know. You walk away from that. You just say, look, you know, that I'm not into that right now, or I haven't had that experience, or I'll pray for them. That's a real killer. When everybody's arguing about or complaining about someone or something, I'll put them in my prayers and walk away. Don't get into it. Don't take sides. And that's the other thing. We get, as Lori was trying to explain, we get pulled into, quote, taking sides. And if we do that, we miss the opportunity to be above it and to, you know, rain our little grace on it.
The other thing I wanted to say too is you used the word earlier, protection, and I have I wouldn't say an issue with that word. I just think that,
no, I don't like protection either. I agree with you.
That the idea of protection is typically coming from
polarity.
Yeah, and just, you know, like a fear-based need, like something out there is harmful for me. And while it's not entirely untrue, the idea that you need protection is coming from a place that you're less than it. Exactly. And I would rather you come from a place that you're greater than it. So if we start shifting into like this radiating out, that our frequency is we're raising and increasing our frequency and our vibration through various processes, right? Healing, breath, nature, healthy eating, healthy thinking, healthy living, happy, radiating joy and happiness, peace and love, and being that, and compassion for ourselves and others, of course. As we're radiating those frequencies, we come into a higher consciousness of knowing that these lower frequencies, such as 5G, television, all that, you know, it really cannot affect us. And it's not like we're being woo-woo. We do have to reprogram our consciousness to know that we can be and hold the embodiment of imperviousness and immunity. In fact, I remember I've given that, we did that anyway. I've done that a lot of times. So once we start holding that in our cellular consciousness, what happens is the transformation internally starts to change from within us, that actually our cells, every cell of our body and being begins to hold that frequency of knowing, you know, I'm impervious to that. I'm immune to that. And it doesn't mean we're going to run in front of a car. It just means we're holding that frequency, and we start realizing that our frequency is a higher, stronger, purer frequency than something that could be harmful or detrimental to us.
Right. But until they get there,
we're all shifting that. We're making that change, you know, within ourselves.
So many things. I had this conversation with someone very recently, Dr. Norma Milanovich. I don't know if either of you know her, but she's been around a real long time.
Mm-hmm. She has been.
And she wrote The Light Shall Set You Free. But what's funny about it is I just had this conversation with her about 3 days ago about how we talk about thoughts and words and things of that nature. but that there is a certain point when you get to a certain frequency where it doesn't have the same effect as it did before.
Exactly.
And that is what you all are talking about now, is that you do get to a certain frequency where these things do not affect you. And so that's the only part I want to add to what you're saying, is that as you are healing and moving yourself along, you get to that place where you are impervious. I like the word impervious.
Mm-hmm.
And that as long as you are keeping that, the radiating of light and the highest frequency, then that's the place where you want to be. Because I feel like that brings us to our next question, which is physical enlightenment, and merging that with our universal energetic self, maybe. So do you feel the same? How does that play? What does it mean to you, physical enlightenment and merging with universal energies?
I want to offer that as you described this, I think that, you know, as you're wrapping up that last piece, it reminds me of Neo in the Matrix, where he was dodging all these incoming, shooting, and you could see on his face, wow, I didn't know I could do that. And it's kind of like that, you know, we get to that place where wow, I didn't know I could not be affected by that, or I didn't even know it was an insult. And you know, in hindsight, I think they were trying. I know it doesn't bother me. Now, going back to the next piece, what happens is when people start to interact with you, you're in such a place of love and compassion. You care about them. You have your center of love for yourself, and the net result is a clarity that it's all good. And that moves us to that place that you're describing of all one, that, you know, we're in this together. So it means that when somebody lets us down, or, you know, breaks a promise or whatever it is, there's no need to hold them accountable. It's a more of a matter of, okay, well, you know, that's what's going on for you, and not evaluating it, but staying in a place of unconditional love and feeling it so strongly in your body that it's not offensive. And that's how we step out of the 3D, because the 3D is a polarity matrix. And as Lori pointed out, you know, the protection, I used to say to people, don't try to make the Merkaba about protection, because it's not. The minute you create protection, that means you imply danger. And it's exactly what she was saying. So how do we put ourselves in that other state? And the answer is we're proactively choosing to be in a place of unconditional love. We do that with our words, by our choice, by saying, I'm waking up in 5D. I choose to be part of the solution. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth. Those, you know, easy, simple statements that claim for us the vibrational data set that we want to operate in. And then, you know, we do pretty well as far as stuff tripping our trigger, and we don't find ourselves reactive or reacting. And that place of joy is so great and so powerful that, for one, I feel my heart just expand way out. And it's like this huge, huge energy that I can actually feel it fill a room. And one time when there was work being done on someone I was with, and I thought I was supposed to leave the room. It was an energy device. And the lady who was running the equipment said, no, you can stay. So I thought, well, what am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to do? And so I chose to build my heart out and just kind of, you know, fill the room with unconditional love and light, and purposefully send the energy out. And later that day, she stopped me and she said, I could feel you fill the room. She said, normally this device pulls the negativity out of people and drives that negativity out of them, but then the room is full of junk. And she said, that's not what happened when you were there. And I think that we're all capable of it. Don't you?
Yes. Yeah. I think that the more you're radiating light, the more you're a channel for light, you're a channel for love and peace, and that it is then possible to always, wherever you're going, that's what you're radiating. And
Mhm.
therefore everything else goes, versus staying or not being able to be cleared or whatever. I mean, I think that that's the goal for everybody, is that we are being the beacon of light. I just have always seen it like a lighthouse. I don't know why. I mean, I see each one of us like a lighthouse. Like that's it. We're just, that light is just strong and beaming out, and it's just doing its full circle. Do you know what I mean? And, for the longest time, everybody talked about, well, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing to serve humanity? And we spent a lot of time in that place. And then, one day it was just simply, my greatest service is to be the greatest beacon of light that I can be. That's it. Whether I ever did this show again or any of the other things that I'm involved in, right? The greatest beacon of light that I can be. And that took a lot of pressure off, actually. So believe it or not, it's
sometimes your greatest service that you can do is to be happy. I mean,
well,
really, it's so important. Just if you're not happy on planet Earth, you're really not helping, because that's what we need. And that happy really means harm to none. It doesn't mean that you go and get to be, screwing your brother or your, somebody else. The other thing too about really being of service, really, and being, is really committing to love, just committing to love. What does that mean to you? If you commit to love, even if you might not like everyone. I remember years ago, I was in this Course in Miracles group, like in Los Angeles, like years ago. And I remember saying in the circle, like, I can love someone who I don't like. And the leader of the circle could not understand that. That was too much. Like, how can you love someone you don't like? It's like, well, I can love someone I don't like. I don't have to like everybody in order to commit to love, to choose love, to be love. And even sometimes if I feel like I can't necessarily love someone or even like someone, which I can, but I can choose to wish them peace. I wish them peace. I have no other business then. I wish them peace. I have no other business with them. And those right there are just huge services to humanity. You don't realize how much that can transform our state of reality by choosing happiness, committing to love, and just sending peace.
And I just,
love.
one second, quick, I'll be really quick. So if we even apply that just to our immediate family.
That's where I was going to go.
I love that.
And here's what I want to say, because I raised 4 sons, and I came from a big family, and I know from firsthand experience how brutal people can be to each other. And one time a friend of mine said, "Well, you just tell that son of yours, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, if I do that, I won't get what I want." And she said, "Well, what is it that you want?" And I said, "I want time with my sons." And when we decide, like Lori's saying, we only have love for you. And, when you have family situations where your adult kids or your parents are acting out in ways that we don't feel loved, we don't feel cherished, we don't feel appreciated, when we turn around and act as if the relationship is perfect, and we choose to act the way we want to act, as if everything is ideal, what we do is we satisfy our own need to be loving. So in simple terms, what does that mean? It means, for me, it meant sending birthday presents and Christmas cards and Christmas presents, and being thoughtful about it, and choosing things that I hoped would be accepted and pleasurable for them. And I did this for years and years with one particular son and never had a result. And then one day, a girlfriend of this particular son said to him, "There's a package there from your mom and you haven't opened it. What's the deal?" And he said, "Well, it's from my mother." And it was that the mother. And she said, well, can I open it? And he said, sure. So she opens it and she says, your mother went to a lot of trouble to pick out something you would like. This is really beautiful.
Mm.
And then she said to him, I think there's something wrong with you, that you treat your mother this way. And I don't know that I want to be with a guy who isn't able to return that, or at least treat her decently. And I'm grateful to this woman for that, because now this son of mine is very close to me. But what I also know is, once I decided that I would do what I wanted to do, whether it was to give them money or to take care of birthdays or whatever it was, that I would do as if it was normal, and that I set it on myself. This is what I do. It took the burden off of them to return it. It took the burden off of me to expect it to be reciprocated. And that's so important this time of year, to be able to give a gift without any expectation that anything is ever coming back.
And I mean, that is really committing to love, in a sense, when you say, I'm going to choose who I want to be.
Exactly.
I'm going to be. It's what you said, what I heard you said at one point was your need to be loving, and meaning all of us. And I so agree. Like, I now know I have consistently demonstrated in my life over and over again my behavior of love, my commitment to loving, my commitment to kindness, my commitment to forgiveness, my commitment to caring, my commitment to the virtues that to me are so important, that when it's presented around me, if it shows up in some other way, like, someone behaving not that way, I'm now enough within myself. I know, oh, that is not my behavior. This is a separate person behaving the way they behave. I can still feel good. Like, I don't have to feel bad because someone else is behaving. Like, even in a recent experience I had, I was like, oh, this is not my frequency. This is not my frequency of love that I'm experiencing. This is coming in my field through an interaction I'm having with some other people. And I can restore myself to my frequency after I get off this call, after I get out of this interaction, because I know who I am. Because I've demonstrated my commitment to love in my frequency, in my behavior, in my thoughts, enough times to know that this is not my frequency. So
okay. I have a question.
That becomes the embodiment. That's the embodiment piece. It's like when you're owning who you are and you know who you're being, like what Maureen was just saying, her commitment was to her own behavior, her own choice of how she was going to behave, regardless of how it was received or portrayed by someone else. She committed to her own way of behaving as love, according to her definition, and it eventually revealed itself and returned, right? I mean, that is a really beautiful story in everyday life.
It is. I'm sure that there are a lot of people listening who have children and spouses and all that this applies to. But it also goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's about attachment to outcomes and expectations in a very simplistic sort of way. But, I want to think about how to say this, I guess. For the people that are listening, taking everything that you have said, I would summarize it by saying, okay, so our greatest focus then is what's going on in here within your own self, loving and accepting yourself and radiating that out, the love and acceptance of everyone just where they are, without that reflecting on you, on me, the worthiness of me, of who I am, that is separate. And, you know, we talked about how we're coming into that holiday season, or it's, you know, this is especially can be a very sensitive time for people for a lot of reasons. And so having this perspective in how to take these higher universal laws, decree them for yourself, own them, accept them, receive them, and what? Just be, allow. Is that what we're saying? Is that it's not easy all the time? We get it. We're human.
Can I say, I would say one of the things is, I mean, what is the highest and best version of yourself?
Yeah.
And you don't even go to answer the question. Just how does the highest and best version of yourself behave in any given moment? How does the highest and best version of yourself think in any moment? What would the highest and best version of yourself think about any particular situation? How does the highest and best version of yourself feel in any moment? And even if you don't know, you don't have to know. You just ask the question and allow that to start to be. That's, to me, you know, another question is, how would love behave right now? How would peace behave right now? What is that? What does that feel like in your body? What action would that
be? The first example best, because when we say how would love be or how would peace be, it kind of distances us. But when we say, you know, what's the best version of me? How, you know, if I'm my best self, what does that look like and how would I behave? It doesn't put any pressure on anything outside of us. It doesn't put, you know, like you walk into a family situation and you feel like, you know, you're low man on the totem pole, or you're the odd man out, or you're the person that they make fun of, or whatever it is, because we're different, let's say. Then how do you fix that? You don't fix them. You decide that you're okay. And you decide you're okay by a lot of things. For one thing, I use humor. And I used to make fun of myself first before anybody else could. And that way everybody's already laughing and put at ease about the fact, oh yeah, she's a little different. And then the next piece is to not worry about getting your own needs met, because that's your job, to meet your own needs, not somebody else's. It's my job to meet my needs, not outside of me, but inside of me. And if I'm doing that, then I am energy available to help others and serve them. And how that changes the matrix is huge, because I was like that, you know, 20 some years ago. And I did have this feeling of not belonging and not fitting in and not being appreciated for who I was. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go into that family situation and be as helpful and loving and supportive to everybody else that I can. I knew who I was, and it didn't matter to me. And everything shifted. Everything shifted. And so one very important piece goes back to all the things that Lori was talking about getting to know who you are, looking after yourself, getting that energy inside of you so authentic and so organized in a powerful way that you're available to love unconditionally. Because if you can't garner your own energy to love and support yourself, there isn't anything there to give to somebody else, because you've got a hole you're trying to fill.
I want to just say a word about that word about unconditionally, because people get very sidetracked with that word. And I think love in the human world is conditional. So I think it's important that we understand, because I've had people in the spiritual realm who are trying to love unconditionally, and they don't realize, like, they're getting abused by someone, and that's their idea of loving. They allow the person to continue in their spouse or someone in their family to keep abusing them, for example, because they're just trying to be unconditional love. You remember, the unconditional love is that you choose to be love, but that does not mean that you choose to receive abuse.
Right.
It does not mean that you choose to allow a corrupt government to be a corrupt government. It does not mean you choose to send love to somebody who's abusing you. It means that you desire and choose and intend to be energy, frequency, vibration, consciousness of love, of peace, whatever that means to you as an individual. But you also have to have the discernment to know in the human reality, love is not abuse. Love is not cruelty. Love is not lying. Love is not harmful intent. Love is not conspiratorial behaviors and action. Love is not a lot of things in our human reality. And so you can be unconditionally loving, but that does not mean you accept or tolerate things that are not acceptable and intolerable. Because sometimes the act of love is saying, that is not okay with me.
Right. Service.
Unconditional love is a really important thing, but to understand what it means, you know what I mean? Because some people get confused about that.
I like to say service to self and others, not servitude.
Yes, love that.
I think that's very well said. Because this is the important part. It is not about being less than any part of this. It is about being, as you said, the greatest version of yourself, Lori. The greatest version of yourself would not be abused, basically. You still have to speak truth. And that's where we started in this conversation.
The other thing too, can I say about understanding abuse? Because I mean, I grew up in a family that was very, they were never physically abusive, but they were mentally abusive. And so, there's a lot of different kinds of abuse that, humanity is now working through. There's something called the gaslighting, where you're basically denied, you're basically told that your truth is not your truth. You can't, you're wrong, like that kind of thing. So this is a whole area that's worthy of exploring, because we're just starting to realize, like, healing these kinds of traumas on our planet. This is part of what's going on right now for us, is for us to decide, like, what's really okay. This is going to come out, by the way, talking about 2020, this is going to come out in a huge way next year. If we just look at astrology of the planet, and, I don't like astrology to be limiting, but it is it's a helpful tool. Right now, what you've got in the sign of Capricorn, you've got three major things going on in there. You got Pluto, you got Saturn. Pluto's the great transformer. Saturn is the restructurer, rebuilder. And Capricorn is a sign of systems, like, schooling systems, banking systems, financial institutions, governments, money systems. And you have a South Node in there right now, which is all about, like, what you keep and what you let go of. And next year we have Jupiter coming in there, which is really going to expand our consciousness in this area. So it's going to be exposing massive amounts of secrets, things that have been held, not given to the public, not shown to the public. So what you're going to have is a huge amount of reevaluation of what kind of abuse humanity has been allowing and tolerating. The abuse of humanity is going to be exposed. This means crimes against humanity are going to be exposed in a massive way in the next year and 2 years. How is humanity going to deal with this is going to be largely based on how we individuals process. Because gaslighting, going back to that word, is the lies we've been told. The lies, how we've been denied our truth. So when we are willing to process through this on an individual level and start recognizing within ourselves, and when we choose love, and at the same time say, this is not acceptable, this is not allowable for the greater good of all. This is where we're going to be healing ourselves as a collective. The next 2 years are going to reveal a lot of this. How we as a human species love ourselves through the awakening of the abuse that humanity has endured, and how we resolve this as a species, as a human planet. This is going to be exposed in the next 2 years. So this is very, very important. Choosing love, choosing peace, and at the same time saying, no, this is not. This is abuse. How the institutions have treated humanity, how the government, how the for-profit corporations, and we played a role in all of that. Each of us did that. So we're resolving, this is what we're going to be resolving individually and collectively over the next 2 years.
And we're getting the tools right now.
Yeah, this is what we're here for. And I got to say, I love what Maureen shares, because what I love so much about you, Maureen, have always loved, is that you share real tools for our everyday living. And we need those tools, you know.
And you know, to our beautiful audience, Lori and I are very good friends, and we're so much on the same page. She could say what I'm saying, and I could say what she's saying. We just, you know, we have different ways of expressing, but truly, our approach, our beliefs, our knowing is almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful to be friends with you, Lori, and I so appreciate you.
Well, I feel the same way about both of you lovely ladies. I'm so grateful. I will say, on a personal level, this past year has been so much for me about recognizing, you know, who my closest relations are, and, you know, letting go of those relations that maybe I thought were friends who weren't, you know, and coming into knowing where my heart-centered connections are, and who I love, value, and appreciate, where I'm really loved, valued, and appreciated in return. And I feel that way about both of you ladies. And
Thank you.
I'm very grateful.
I think that is the topper of everything that we've said. Really, it is this piece of what makes you happy inside, right? Fills you up and helps you to keep going for the times that might get a little bit crazy for you. And who do you reach out to? And where do we get the support from as we continue forward? Because this part where we started, where all the energy is coming in continuously, and it's giving us the opportunity to transform, and that at times that can be a big job, just that whole process as we're all doing it. And then plus what humanity is receiving the same, and that same energy affects people differently. I mean, that's my impression of it, that, you know, for those of us who are awakened and we understand the purpose and what it can help us to do, you know, we take it for what it is. We allow what needs to be purged to go, and then we're moving forward. And others don't exactly know how to respond. All right, so we're going to take a quick question from Jim before we call it a night. What is your vision for preparing the next generation of teachers and healers to serve the next wave of awakening humanity?
For me, it's the opportunity and the privilege to work with these highly evolved beings who are coming in, who are very often direct channels, are very often having experiences they don't understand, and supporting them as best we can to encourage them and to validate them, because they do not have peers or parents that will. So they need people like all of us to support them and to help them shift and evolve. There's a lot of young people who have many gifts and they don't have resources, so they can't take classes, but there are so many of these wonderful free trainings where you get to hear from speakers who are happily sharing their knowledge, their exquisite experiences, their special tools, that there's no excuse for those young people who don't have resources to get the knowledge they need to become who they need to be. And then as they, you know, find their way in the world, we support them with our encouragement. You know, I've had students, I'm sure you've done the same thing, Lori, that their light was so big that even though they didn't have any money, I continued to support them, put them through classes of mine, or give them, you know, regular readings to help them get to the next level, because it was necessary. was just necessary.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I agree. You know, I think there's right now, I mean, there's so much of, I know for me, so much of what I've done is just, you know, open sourced and available out there. And I mean, to me, this is us being of service. This is us sharing.
Exactly.
You know, we're being of service here. But I would say that my vision for the next wave of teaching people is really about helping people to learn how to think, not what to think. I thought it was really fascinating. I was in Starbucks today and I gave the woman like an extra penny, you know, because the price was like $2.61. And I watched her on her phone have to do the math because the computer that she plugged it in didn't plug in the penny. And she couldn't figure out the change without doing the calculator to figure out the right change. 1 penny difference. And I thought, oh my God, like I went to Ho'oponopono in me because I didn't want to like judge her. I went to judgment for a second, like, and then I so didn't want to go to judgment. So I just went to Ho'oponopono, like, I'm so sorry, whatever I judged you. Like, that was so sad to me. Where am I going with this? It's because we haven't been learned how to think. It's like the how to think is coming out of us. It's like you can't even think, like I have to figure this out on a calculator. And humanity is only taught like the 3 steps of, you know, tapping into your psychic abilities, or step 1, 2, 3 to figuring the whole world out, and take a pill and everything will be better. And everybody has just stopped thinking. You know, this is like, even just TSA is a really good example that nobody's really thinking. Like, why do you have to take off your flip-flops? Come on. Like, why do you have to take your freaking computer out? Like, it's so stupid. Humanity is not thinking anymore. They're just being told what to do and what to think and what to believe. So I would like us to start learning how to think. So I know in almost everything I teach and lead, all the healings I do, everything that comes through, all the channelings, it's always like, just notice whatever you notice, just observe. Because this teaches people in their own way. Oh, I'm observing. I'm just noticing. Like, what am I noticing? Oh, I noticed a little this, I noticed a little of that. And as you're noticing and observing, you're actually relearning how to think in your own way, how to become conscious. Even in the exercise we did today about learning how to tell the truth from a lie, no one's saying how to tell the truth from a lie. We're saying what your body does naturally. When you're told a truth, you expand. What does that feel like for you? When you're told a lie, you contract. What does that feel like for you? What does that mean to you? This is you learning how to think for you. We're not sitting here, none of us said what is, you know, what's true and what's false. We all said there's all kinds of truths and all kinds of falsities. So I just think we have to learn how to think and how to trust ourselves to discern. That's what I believe is where we really have to shift into that, becoming more conscious for ourselves.
I couldn't agree more.
And
it is about discernment and intuition.
The way to discern is to ask the question, what's going on? Not who, not when, not why, but what is going on? Because it's the only question that's open-ended.
Also, I know when I'm checking in with my own guidance on things about something that I may be learning, I'll ask, is this true, real, and right? Like, if I have an opinion on something, I will ask, is this true, real, and right? And if I'm, you know, just because I know my own inner guidance and stuff, at the same time, if my body lights up, if I hear yes, if I receive thumbs up, if some part of my consciousness is expanding, it's true, real, and right. I can trust it. If some part of me is like, maybe it's not true, real, or right. So I use that as a part of my own navigation as well.
This is all so important. I personally think and feel, see that? Think and feel. This is the most important part to get through the next level, the next wave of things that are happening, is getting that true centeredness within yourself. Because without it, you lose your own navigation and you will then be told what to think, how to do, etc., etc. And I know for myself, as I have younger children, this is my greatest challenge, is to get them to learn this go within piece. And what's funny about it is that like true teenagers, I'm just the mom. What the heck do I know? But I'm like, this is the most important piece. And I want them to learn to do it from a young age so that it's easier later. It's harder to learn new tricks, right? Later, but it's just harder to do sometimes. And if you can do it and teach it to the younger generation, I think then they will be much further ahead. But the challenge is to speak their language to where they can relate. For me, that seems to be my issue. Can I say also,
though, sorry, I'm cutting off. I don't mean to, sorry. But when it comes to the younger generation, teaching them self-trust is so important, because that has been literally taken out of us. It's like, call your doctor, ask your lawyer, go to your banker, some outside authority. That is
ask Siri. Come on.
Siri. It is so 3D paradigm to give your power to some outside authority. Like, you don't matter unless you're a best-selling author. You don't matter unless you're famous. All that stuff is external authorities having power over you. And if we can teach our children to start to self-trust, I mean, obviously we have to navigate them. I'm not a parent of a child in this lifetime, but I have great parenting, mothering. I have so much in my house of mothering cancer, so many planets in the mother. I'm like a mother to humanity. And I just think it's so important to reinstill self-trust into the children, into the next generation, and into ourselves. And we give ourselves that in increments if we're not sure. What does it mean? How do I trust myself? What does that mean to me to trust myself and to navigate my world with a sense of trust?
Having raised 4 sons, and they're all adults and they're able to make very good decisions, I will share with you a tool that instills the trust, because it's hard for teenagers to trust themselves. And it's certainly, they're not going to trust their parents because they're the parent, and there's this energy around that. But I found out that the fastest way to get the children, or the young people, teenagers, to trust themselves and to trust their inner knowing is when they tell you what's going on, the drama, the trouble, the homework, whatever it is, that they got to figure out what to do. Instead of telling them what to do, to say to them, how are you going to fix that? How are you going to solve that? And then to say, I'm sure you'll figure it out, honey. I'm sure you'll figure it out, honey. It's scary as heck as a parent to say it. And on more than one occasion, I've gotten off the phone and screamed. But I still say it to them over the phone or to their face. How are you going to solve that? Or I'm sure you'll make the right decision, honey. And then I get off the phone and scream.
And that is awesome. And I know, just from my conversations with Gabrielle, she has said that to her kids too. But I just also say that the thing is with the 5D paradigm, a lot of times we maybe don't think we have the answer, but the amazing thing is somewhere within us, the answer does exist. We have the answer within us.
That's exactly what I'm talking about in teaching the younger generation.
How to do this.
Is getting them. I was just explaining to Lori that I've just started something new, and I'm going to share it, since I know there are a lot of people out there with kids, older, younger, middle, whatever. And that is, so recently we had a big family brouhaha. But the positive that came out of it, of course, because everybody gets their opportunity to speak, right? And it's hard not to judge family, right? It's so fascinating to be part of that dynamic and be quiet and just allow all of it, the shit to hit the fan. But what came out of it was where each evening we're getting together as a family and I'm doing a 5-minute healing and just really calling in the golden beings of light to bring light and to fill all of us with light, etc. And the objective is all the things that you have mentioned is that self-love, self-acceptance, self-trust, compassion for self, all those things that help to bring us together, so that hopefully in helping to bring them together, that they'll be able to connect and even have that inner intuition, that inner knowing versus what they're being bombarded with from the outside. So for this next generation, I feel like this starting younger, what we didn't have, which is healing your heart, healing all those aspects of yourself that are separated from God, basically. And so it doesn't matter whether you're younger, middle, or older. It's just that there aren't a lot of parents that know how to help their children and how to help them learn this younger versus waiting until, you know, things get they get older or what have you. So it's what we're doing, and I'll keep everybody posted so you can know how it's going. But so far, as I was explaining to Lori, wow, what an energetic shift in the household, because I have 2 teenage daughters, which always keeps things really full and busy. But what happened was, just after the very first time of doing this, the energy in the house went from wah, like this, to just like this. And I thought, holy cow, for 5 minutes, you bet I'm doing this every day. Every day.
Does
So,
everybody sit with you?
sorry?
Does everyone in the family sit with you when you do it?
Yes. We all sit before dinner. So dinner's over on the table and we're in the living room and everybody's nice and comfy on the leather sofas, just chilling. And we keep it, you know, short. I realize I have, you know, 3 little kids or 3 kids, right? So it's not about time, it's not length of time, it's just making that connection, connecting their higher selves all the way up to the highest frequency of God, and providing whatever it is that they need, really. Their higher selves know, and that's what's important. But it's just fascinating, I think, for me as a practitioner and a healer, that I'm now actually doing it physically with them versus before, where I might just do a quick cleanup on them or something like that, where they're not actually consciously involved. And so this is kind of the conscious manifestation of what we're doing. So I'm testing it out. Not that that was my intention, but now I realize that, answering Jen's question, it's taking it to that next generation and hopefully helping this generation feel connected, because I feel like that's a large part of the issue for many people in our society. They don't feel connected to anything. They feel detached and as if nobody really cares. And there's many things and levels and layers to that. So we'll see. But I'm hopeful for everyone as we go through this process that we continue to create community, which is what I hope to do with this show. And I thank both of you beautiful women for being here. And I want to tell everybody that you can go out to soulscape.tv, and both of these beautiful ladies have free gifts for you that you can access and get more information on working with them and what they're up to, because I know these 2 are up to a lot. And that's what's really important, is to know and to do things that resonate, that you know will help you to move to your next level, because that's what it's all about. Yes, Lori?
Yes, I know, you know. I want to say that both Maureen and I will be at the Conscious Life Expo in Florida. I'm sorry, in February. I'm in Florida right now, but it's in Los Angeles, and it will be in February. And we're both on the Ascension panel there, and we're also both speaking there, and we have workshops and events happening there. So if you want to meet us in person at the Conscious Life Expo in California in February, I hope you will come. And I know I'm looking forward to seeing Maureen in person then, because we'll be there together. So
Well,
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you
Thank
from
you
my
so
heart to
much for
yours.
having me and both of us.
And thank you for
Love you
having
guys.
me, and thank you for making it such a great panel. It was a lot of
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Next week, see us live. Have a beautiful night. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
fun. Okay.
Thank you for joining us on the SoulScape.tv show. Go to SoulScape.tv to access the many free gifts from our guests and for more great masterclasses and panelist discussions.